Here's what happened, guys. Came up with a question for you today. Do you believe that the government has your best interest? Yes or no? I can give you a little extra time if you need it. My answer is no. And I suggest you also have that answer too. Because with power and with how big the government is and how many taxes we're paying, it can be easily corrupted. And we see that in the state of Minnesota with the fraud that is happening there, to then the state of my home state of Maryland. And if you took the time to look at the State Highway Administration debacle, you can check that out, to then states like California with the homelessness crisis. And it's like they want you to think you're stupid as a small business owner, or just ignore what they're doing. This whole don't look here, or like the one of the biggest lies is thinking that you should just ignore what you can't control. And the more I thought about that, yeah, it gave me peace short term. But the more I thought about that, I was like, okay, if I'm not informed and understanding where my money is going, that I'm paying in taxes, then what can someone do when nobody is looking? And that is how we have to decide our worldviews. Because I know you as a small business owner, you could fall into two camps, usually in the one camp, which is the peacemaker. You always want to look at the best in everyone. And you care about if it's your clients, customers, care about your community. And it is admirable. It's awesome. But you also need your fighter there with you. The person that is going to ask the questions when it doesn't make any sense, and is going to get curious, and is not going to be so willing to support something if actually what someone is saying, for an example, a nonprofit, what they're doing is fraudulent, because they're actually taking the time to do the research and the due diligence. And so when we come together and we unite, we become a very powerful force in our country here in America. And I do believe America's future is a small business renaissance. Welcome back to the Artie Weeks show. Let's talk about taxes today. Specifically, reason why I bring it up, I saw a video from Henry McMaster, the governor of South Carolina. I used to live in the Charleston area, South Carolina, for over 10 years. And this is where A Future Fest is being hosted, is in this state of South Carolina, city of Charleston. And I saw the video, and he talked about it was his state address, and he said that if there was a bill with that came to his desk that eliminated state income tax, he would sign it. And for me, I get excited hearing something like that. And then you also have to make sure there's the follow through. But what it reminded me of looking back at all the different taxes that we pay, you could go down the list of different taxes. And what was sold to us that is starting to crack for this illusion is that this money is being put to good use, being put to good programs, to infrastructure, to public services. And now you got to ask yourself a question. In your own state, you can ask yourself this question. How's your infrastructure doing? How are the public services? Think of the DMV to education. We're not doing great. It's pretty terrible in a lot of ways. So then we look at these situations that are happening in Minnesota. The fraud that now estimates are saying in the billions of fraud that unfolded in Minnesota. And you know that's not the only state. Go to my home state of Maryland, and you could look, if you want to take the time to research this, the State Highway Administration and what happened there. But there are allegations of fraud in that state. And then there's allegations of fraud in California. And so with all of this that's coming out right now, it's, the thought that can come up is, people that are the powerful. I said with this worldview, it's not a right or left issue. I know as a small business owner, you may not care about politics, but politics definitely cares about you. And you have to remind yourself of that, because it's important to be informed and know what is going on in your communities on a local level, state level, and a federal level. And because there's this monopoly of power, it's up to us, the American people, to keep that in check with the government. And you have to remind yourself because it could be easy to forget about this with all of this psychological operations that get pumped into us with fear of our government, is we don't have to be fearful of our government, because our government is supposed to be taking care of us. We don't have to, but with all that's unfolded and the greed, the corruption, the rigging and abusing of the system of this of the system of capitalism, there is a lot to be fearful of. But we, as small business owners, need to unite and move forward. And so it's important to ask this question to yourself of where are your taxes going to supporting in your state? Because the other question that can come up is it easy, or is it really difficult and complicated to understand where your money is going, that you are forcibly having to pay to the government in the form of taxes? You think about it's really difficult. And we have to make some changes. We do. And as small business owners, I go down the list of with state income tax, there is 9 states with no state income tax. What I would like to see happen through this movement is that gets up to 41 states without income tax. And now this is what could come up. It's like, okay, well, no, this funds our public school education. This funds our infrastructure, services. Again, I'm going to ask you that question. How is the infrastructure? How is the education? What keeps coming up is like, hey, we got to just keep pumping more money and more money and more money and more money into these different programs. Well, maybe it's time to reevaluate, are these taxes actually necessary? Because what I think is, if we actually were able to look behind the curtain, which is like so absurd that we can't take the time to actually look behind the curtain or get that spreadsheet or really understand what is going on, not look at just a complicated mess, but really take the time to go through it. And you have your audits. Yes, I know that you could go on the website, take some time to do the digging, but it does take a lot of time to go through that. And so why isn't it easier? But when we actually were to go through all this and cut through all of the corruption, I believe it would be shocking to each one of us to realize just actually how little money it takes to run our country effectively. And because of that, I always side now on I used to be, I think about this, I used to be very liberal. Now I side more conservative, but I also don't want to be placed in a box. I don't want you to be placed in a box. And so it's based off of our issues that we have to talk about what our viewpoints are and our opinions are. And when it comes to taxes, I want to find ways where you as a small business owner can keep more money, hold on to that, and not have to pay through taxes. Because what could you do with that money? I talked about it yesterday. You could hire new employees. You could be able to update your equipment, take the family vacation. You could just breathe easier, pay off some debts. Like there could be so many different ways you could use that money, and by also continuing to keep it in the local economy too. And then I think about giving. We're such a generous country where we can give to charities and nonprofits that could support and create that safety net for us as Americans, because I do believe in a safety net, but not something that turns into cabana. So with taxes, you have, again, the state income tax is one. We then get into what I talked about yesterday with statewide sales tax. And I would like to see that go from not 5 states, but up to 45 states with no statewide sales tax. And then this hospitality tax. I remember having a conversation with a hotel manager in the Charleston area. And, she mentioned this hospitality tax. And I asked her, well, do you know, or she may have even been the one who brought it up. She was like, I don't know where that money goes. Like, we have to pay this, but I don't know where it goes. And similarly with the sales tax, it's like, do you actually know where it goes? Or it just goes into the general fund and then it's going to be divvied out to all these different programs. So that, when we're talking about taxes, it's like, we got to figure out as small business owners what just doesn't make any sense. What is hurting your business? And I think about sales taxes, and specifically in food and bev. And I had a conversation, mentioned that yesterday, conversation with a small business owner who owns a retail shop, and how she was mentioning, you have to pay like upwards of around 11% in taxes, from the sales tax to the hospitality tax. And her thought process was like, okay, well, we're having to push that onto the customer, and then now what's the customer gonna do if they have the ability to? Could they tip more? Probably not. Or would they be able to buy more of our products if there wasn't that much tax? Like, these are the questions that come up, and then you every month are looking at how much you got to pay in that tax. And I'm sure it puts a lot of stress on you and a lot of pressure on you. And so this isn't to get into victim mode at all, but it's to get into awareness mode and to be informed and to understand where we can push back, because we can push back when it comes to taxes, of deciding which taxes are necessary and which ones got to go. This goes back to one of the principles of this movement, that America's future is a small business renaissance, which is getting rid of unnecessary taxes and regulations for small businesses. And we've got to make small businesses first, okay? Because small businesses are feeling squeezed, and small businesses are the heart of the economy. I've said it before, small businesses, there are 36 million small businesses here in the US that employ 45% of the private workforce. And so when it comes to the taxes, and just now the stories are coming out with the fraud, and then you dive into then the Epstein files. And I talked about it yesterday, and I'm getting more into these Epstein files, but I mean, it's satanic, it's evil, there's evilness there, and it's not a right or left, but it goes back to this worldview of we get a glimpse into the powerful and then the rest of us. And it's disgusting in a lot of ways, going through those emails. And it's like hitting us in the face of, this is the reality that we're living in, and what we were living in was an illusion. And so that can be overwhelming as a small business owner. I do take that into consideration, and it can be easy to just get stuck, stick your head into the sand and just stay in your small world. But we cannot ignore this any longer. And I said it. This is 65 to 80 years in the making for this moment in history. I recommend you read the book, Fourth Turning, where we have an opportunity for massive change. And so what we got to do is not be fearful of the government, because it's like, when did that come up for you, right? Like, when did me even like questioning the government for you become like a, whoa, like, I don't want to, like, that's scary. Like, I felt that. I was just like, if someone were to be like, oh, we should question this, like, this doesn't make any sense, I'm like, whoa, I shouldn't be hanging out with you. And that goes back to my tendencies, where I was more liberal, more pro-government, thinking government was there to support us. And then now hitting the real world and realizing that we're all human beings and we are flawed and not perfect, it's swung the other way. And to realize there are evil forces and satanic forces that are out there. It swung into then being more conservative. And again, I don't want to be placed in a box, and it's important for us to be able to be in a space where we can have dialogue and disagree. But you got to make sure, as a small business owner, you're being informed when it comes to specifically taxes is in one area. And then what we want to get into then is welfare too, is the other one, because this is where empathy can be weaponized. And this is where you have to navigate all of these psychological operations and this propaganda that's out there. And the reason why you got to navigate it is because your voice is such a powerful voice in the community. I mean, the approval rating for small businesses is sky high. I don't know off of the top of my head. I don't want to say percentage, but it's very high. Okay, we're talking really high here. It's like I want to say the number, and then I'm like, I don't remember it. I have to go back and look at this, but it's very high. And so your voice can be a guiding light. I do believe small business owners are the future leaders of this country. And so instead of just continuing to work hard and just focus on your lane, you also got to expand out, not just within your own industry, but expand out to other industries and nationally what is going on. Understanding more locally what's going on in the different industries within business, and then overall what relating to government, what is going on and where those tax-paying dollars are going, and asking those questions and being curious and being informed. Because I do believe when small business owners come together and become informed and get into this more of understanding what is going on in the political landscape, I do believe we could solve. We could really figure out a lot of these problems and solve them, and be able to move forward and improve the quality of life of all Americans. So the other area we got to focus on, where empathy can get weaponized, is the welfare state and the tens of millions of people that are on welfare. We're currently over 40 million people that are on the SNAP program. And if you're going back to the 2000s, we're talking, 2000. Let me make sure I have this right for where it was. Bear with me here because I want to make sure I got this right here. If we're going back to 2000, yeah, here we go. Oh, no, that's not it. Where is it? There we go. 2000, there was a little over 17 million people on SNAP. So you go from 17 all the way up to over 40 million. There's a problem. And the solution isn't to get more people onto welfare and get more people to be dependent on the government. It's how do we create more opportunities to get people off of welfare and to move forward and improve their quality of life, to realize that they don't have to be a victim and they can actually step up and move forward. And we got to create that opportunity as small businesses. I believe small businesses are going to be playing a big role in that moving forward. But we've got to keep talking about this. I said it yesterday with that, the tens of millions on welfare, but we can't stop talking about this. It's crazy to think about this. With this affordability crisis, government is not the answer. Putting more money towards something that's already so big and so mismanaged and so corrupt is not the answer. Small businesses, I believe, are the answer moving forward and going to be playing a big role in that. It's not the sole answer, but it's one of the answers. And it's something that we're going to have to continue to address moving forward and talk more about, because the American dream, what it is, it's wherever you start, through hard work, you can have a better life. I mean, that's the American dream. To have ownership in this country, if that's starting a small business to owning a home. And I remember, I talked about that yesterday. Back in the early 1980s, average home price was 3 times the median income. Today, the average home price is 7 times the median income. And so we got to get back to the ownership part of this, where we've got to build more homes, got to make it easier when it comes to regulations for small businesses to get started. We got to have more structure there of ownership for small business owners when it comes to assets. If it's building the building that the business is located in, creating opportunities for buybacks through leases over a period of years, being able to then buy back the building, to then your equipment as well, being able to own those. So there's been, we've been sold the illusion of like, we got to rent, it's easier, short term it could be, but then looking at this long term, and I've been a business owner, like I remember when I got first started over 10 years ago as a DJ in the business world, as an entrepreneur, and then looking across the years and all the conversations I've had a lot of conversations. Ownership is really important because you care about it more, care about this country more when you have more ownership in this country. And we got to get back to this American dream and celebrate working hard, realizing that it is not fair in a lot of ways, acknowledging that, figuring out ways to stop the corruption and stop the fraud, and be able to make sure that really we hold accountable government to be there to support us, the American people. And right now, there are so many psychological operations that are out there. I think about that if it's immigration, to if it is welfare, to taxes. We get bombarded constantly. But it's really important it's so important for you to step up as a small business owner to be able to handle all of that. And I think about that as a man and as a leader of the household. Step up to that. Take that challenge on. We're built for this. When it comes to moving forward, we are built as human beings to face these challenges, to take them head on, and to move through them. And on the other side of it, we learn, we grow, we develop into better human beings. And there are so many gifts that come from that. And the courage that it takes is a lot of courage, but then what happens is that habit starts to build more and more. And then before you know it, you're leading life with fearlessness. And when you're in that state, You know, when you're in that state, what happens. Things change. And things can improve dramatically, from quality of life to holding to the truth, communicating the truth, seeking out the truth. And I know, I know it. We need more truth in this world, and we are in a spiritual battle right now. There is, I talked about before my faith. I've come back to Christianity, and I read the Bible all the way through, and reading Revelations, and realizing that Satan is real. That is something we have to remember. Satan is real. There is satanic forces that are out there, these evil forces that are out there, and that would want to control us more as American citizens. I think about postmodernism and cultural Marxism that is out there, and we have to push back against that as small business owners, because capitalism and your freedom to be able to own your small business, we must preserve that, and we must fight for that in this country, and to fight for our individual rights, and to fight for the individual, to realize that individualism, going back to e pluribus unum, out of many one. From individualism, we then can unite as one nation and unite as small business owners and make massive change. So I love this country. I hope you love this country too. We're going to get more into this with taxes, more into this of going through the principles this week. I got more talk about immigration that I'm going to bring up to this week from my source, former U.S. Border Patrol agent and station leader. And to help wake you up and be aware of what is going on, because what's really important is the awareness. And where things don't make sense, be curious, ask those questions. You can share those in the comment for what's coming up for you. And then again, as a small business owner, if you want to connect with other small business owners that care about this country and want to see this country continue to be the greatest country in the history of the world, then you can join us in Charleston, South Carolina, January 14th and 15th, 2027 for a Future Fest, where over 300 small business owners are going to be coming together to connect across industries and celebrate this movement that America's future is a small business renaissance. I'll see you guys tomorrow.